Welcome back to the channel, YouTube. Winks here. If you're trying to get your stats to look more like this and you're trying to get an added bonus to those stats with weapon mastery, then you came to the right channel. Now we have 100 for both our weapon mastery and our armor mastery. Welcome back to the channel, YouTube. Winks here. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit those like and subscribe buttons. That way you never miss out on anything that I upload. So just like the intro to this video said, today we are going to be discussing maxing your stats, because that's what this whole series is about. And the next step in that process, if you've been keeping up this long, is weapon mastery. It's a fairly simple concept. It's easy to do, so this video is probably going to be quicker. But today I'm going to show you how to easily and efficiently do that with minimal effort. So the video breakdown for today's video is going to go similar to this. So first we're going to talk about weapon mastery, like where you see it, what it is, and its benefit. Then we're going to talk about my setup from Evilities to equipment, and then I'll demonstrate and show you how easy it is to improve it. Okay, so the first topic of discussion, in case you're completely new to Disgaea and have no idea what I'm talking about, the place that you find your weapon mastery is very simple to find. You just go to the character menu, you find your character, and then click on status here. The status bar essentially tells you everything you need to know about your particular character. Now over to the right hand side there, you'll see a column there with listed as weapon mastery. Under that column, you'll see each type of weapon category and its icon, and then there is a gauge and a symbol with a letter slapped on top of it. So essentially any character, any humanoid character, let me make sure I say this accurately, can equip any humanoid weapon. You see the little, the two near the bottom where it has that little symbol there, the red circle with the slash through it. Those are monster weapons. So monsters can only equip monster weapons, and the humans can equip any of the humanoid weapons, which is essentially the fist all the way through the wands. Now that's for the weapon, not the gear, the armor. But every character, whether humanoid or monster, has the same armor gauge, and I can show you that by going to Suizan, because he's technically a monster character. You see that his kind of swapped there. He's got an A and B for the monster weapons, and all the humanoid weapons he cannot use. But his armor gauge is essentially the same there. You can see that when I'm swapping back and forth. So the letters represent the rate at which the mastery will go up for that character. So naturally, you'll notice when you're going through different characters that they have different rates because they have different weapons, right, or different letters next to the weapons listed, right? You can see that for every character. Now that can be changed. The letter can. I'm going to go over that a little more later into the video, not too long from now, but that letter can be altered to change the rate and speed up the rate at which your mastery can be gained, in addition to the cheat shop as well. So that's kind of where you look to see the weapon mastery, and that's kind of what you're looking at when you look at it. Now the numbers, as you kill enemies and get attacked and are on the attacking end yourself, you'll see that number start to increase. The weapon gauge increases by the more enemies you attack. Your armor increases by the number of attacks you take. The attacks have to connect for that to register. In lieu of that, on that same note, excuse me, when it comes to the numbers and the gauge rising, you'll also, there are certain milestones for each number. I can't remember the exact order of the milestones, whether it's, mastery 15, 20, 25, whatever. Each milestone that you hit, you also unlock abilities for that weapon type for your character. Now, if I'm wrong, you guys can correct me in the comments, but I believe that the last one is at level 50. That's when you get like your ultimate ability for that weapon or whatever it is. Usually it's a 9x9. I know for the sword it's a, I keep saying 9x9. It's a 3x3 attack. I think it's Rising Heavens for the sword. I'm not sure what the other ones are because honestly, guys, I don't use the other weapons for a lot of characters because most of the stuff you do in this game requires that 3x3 square. So the sword and the Neo Ball Sword are naturally the way that I tend to go because that's the best weapon on this game. So like I said, there's some Disgaea veterans that watch my videos. You guys feel free to comment down below and add some additional information if I missed something for the new players here. But I believe it's level 50 when you hit that mark and you're leveling up. Now, the reason that this is important, right? So I've showed you what it is. I showed you where to see it. The benefit to this is that this essentially, if you think back to my other videos, my mastering your classes and reincarnating, those are raising your aptitudes. Essentially, your weapon mastery, when it hits level 100, is adding an additional 200% to your aptitudes. You won't see it on your aptitude gauge, I don't think. I haven't really checked to see, but you can test it to see the value difference when you know, compared from 0 weapon mastery to 100. There is a huge difference in the stats that you get from your equipment. Now, before, in lieu of that, before we get into the demonstration, in lieu of what I just said, as far as the benefit and it adding the additional aptitudes, I want to show you before the demonstration. That way you can see the actual difference in the numbers and see that for yourself. Now, this step, technically for me and my process, I consider it step 4 in maxing my stats because of just how I do things in my gameplay. You don't necessarily have to do this after that in that same order, but I do recommend you do it after mastering your classes, simply because of the ability setup and unlocking all those ability slots, because as you master classes you unlock ability slots, and the more the better for this class mastery step. This could be done in step 3, but I do it as step 4, so I need to throw that out there just to be factually correct. Now, as far as the benefit and adding those additional stats, I kind of went over the math with the aptitudes in my one of my videos. I believe it was the class mastery video, if I'm not mistaken, but we discussed that. So I want to show you this item here. He has nothing else on him except this one item, and we're gonna focus on the attack stat in particular. So that's going to be our measuring point. So as you can see for this item, this is before I've mastered his class or his weapon mastery. You can see that here on the screen as well. He has 0s across the board for his weapon mastery. Nothing has been done with that. And his sword, which I'm going to use for the demonstration, is at it's an A for the letter, and it's at 0. The attack stat for the weapon, if you look over on the right hand side, is 170,413. Now, because of his aptitude, his attack aptitude, you can see that under equipment compatibility is at 295%. Now, I already explained the math and how that works, so all we're doing is we're taking 2.95 and multiplying it by that weapon attack stat, 170,413. That plus, if you look next to the character status and you see that 20,502,718 under, you know, right next to the attack stat, going further over to the right, you see a plus 502,718. That 502,718 is coming from multiplying that weapon stat of 170,413 by the 2.95 attack compatibility. That's where that math is coming from, and that contributes to 502,000 of that 20,502,718. Just so you understand the numbers, and this is before we do the demonstration. Remember that 502,718 and how we got that number. Okay, so moving on to the next topic of discussion, the first thing I want to start with is his ability setups. Now for the demonstration, because I've already shown you Valvatorez, he has 0 weapon mastery. I'm just going to use him. I've been using him in the other videos, so why not? So the ability setup is pretty simple. The first three really don't matter so much, so don't really pay any attention to those. Those are just unique to whatever character you're using. But the first one is forced counter. Forces target unit to counter attack. This one comes from mastering the martial artist to 5 stars. So again, all the more reason to do this after mastering all those classes. The next one is Cloth of Truth. Reduces damage taken by 50%, but can't evade attacks. That is crucial because remember I said, as far as your armor leveling up that gauge, you need those attacks to connect. So if you can't evade, you're gonna get hit every single time. But don't worry, if your stats are high enough and you got to this point, don't even worry about it. Next one is handicapped. When attacking lower level targets, they will survive with 1 HP. That's crucial because you want them to keep getting hit by you. No matter how strong you are, they will never die. You can just keep hitting them over and over and over again. And the map we're going to go to, they're going to be so weak, it's not even going to matter anyway about them hitting you. But the Cloth of Truth is just an extra added measure. The next one is Retribution. Increase the number of counterattacks by 2 because you want them to keep attacking over and over, because the more they hit, the faster that bar goes up, that mastery. Counter Knowledge, increasing counterattacks by 1 this time. And then the 2 at the bottom, Armor Guru, sets your weapon mastery grade for the armor to S, because remember I told you you can change that. And then the Sword Guru, this one you're going to swap depending on what weapon you're trying to get mastery for, but there's a Guru ability for every weapon. For him, I'm using the sword, and that's the one that I recommend as well, because like I said, most of the situations in Disgaea require that 3x3, and you get that from the sword anyway, so might as well use the sword. Now, I didn't tell you where to get all these other ones. The Cloth of Truth comes from the Giant Eye, 4 stars, class mastery. Handicap comes from the Demon Lord, gotcha. Retribution comes from the Martial Artist at 2 stars, I believe. Counter Knowledge comes from the Overlord, gotcha. Armor Guru comes from the Supreme Overlord, gotcha. And so does the Sword Guru. So that is it for the abilities. Now, as far as my equipment, I kept the same Neo Ball Sword. All I did was I added in some veneer thrusters simply because of the properties that they have on them. This is one of the few times that I'm actually concerned with the properties on the gear. Specifically for the skill improvement property that you see over here. I just found some. This is 15% total here. This one's got 25%, I believe, and then this one's got 15% on it for the skill improvement. That's just further adding to the skill improvement. Now, if you take the time and you get all the perfect properties like some people like to do, I don't necessarily care for that, but it will speed it up the higher you get that. So if you spend the time and get those properties, you can get a perfect piece of equipment in 3 slots to where you can max this out from the equipment. Now, the last thing you need to do for your setup is, as usual, you need to abuse the cheat shop and you need to turn the weapon mastery to its max. I realize some of you may not have beaten Carnage Ball and gotten the full bar, but the higher you can set this, the quicker this can be done. So set it to your max. Now, the last thing you're gonna need for this before you go into this particular map that we're about to go into, you need a second character, one that you're not doing the weapon. Well, you could probably, it doesn't matter if they have weapon mastery or not, but when I do this, I just use a second character that doesn't have that handicap ability on them, because you are going to need to kill some of the enemies on here. So I have a second character on here as a backup, just throwing that out there. You can do this technique for up to your whole squad. If you set them all up with the same set of abilities, you can take them all to the same map and do all their weapon mastery at the same time. Just, it will take that many times longer to do it because you got to wait for each animation. So that's what makes it take the longest. But for this demonstration, I'm only going to show this to you for one character and then let you take it and run with it however you want to, for those of you that don't know how to do this. So the map that we're going to go to is the map 12-4. It is the Leaping Hope map for this demonstration. So we've already been to the cheat shop, we've already set up our abilities, and I wanted you to remember that number from the beginning that I showed you, because we're going to come back to that. So when you come here, the only two characters I'm going to use is Fuji, because I want Fuji to help me work on taking out some of these characters. So I'm going to go ahead and move him over here, attack that guy, and then the character that we are leveling our weapon mastery up for, in our case, is Valvatores. We're going to bring him over here to this square right here, which says always counter. So I'm just going to attack this guy and then end the turn, and watch as I do this. Valvatores, you'll see his mastery start to go up like that, and he's already learned some of those skills that I mentioned to you earlier. Now those reinforcements are the reason that you want this second character. You really only need one character for this process to work. So we're just going to continue on down. I'm going to move him. I'm going to try and move him to a spot where he can effectively, actually, you know what? I may bring out another character just to get him where I need him on that square, because that one guy's kind of messing things up. I'm going to throw him over here. Now he's on that square. And now I'm going to continue with my attacks. You're just going to see that over and over again. Now I got another ability and more reinforcements. And hopefully that knight doesn't attack the wrong character. Now we're going to move this character out of the way, because I don't want him to mess up my process here. And I'm just going to keep going around, getting rid of these base panels, and working on this guy. And this is going to continue until I have completely maxed that weapon mastery bar out. Also, while you're doing this, go into your settings and make sure that you change the speed of your animations and skip all that. That'll make it faster. But I'm just going to continue on around. Keep doing this. So as this is working, I'm going to show you real quick. After this is done, I'm going to show you his status and show you where we're at in terms of his weapon mastery, so you can see how much he's gained already. And then I'm just going to skip all the way to the end, cut all the extra stuff out, so you don't have to watch that. So let's look real quick. Let's look at his. So he's already at sword weapon mastery 37, and his armor is also at 37. So I'm just going to keep repeating this process, and I will cut out all the rest until the end so we can see the final number.
My turn already?
Alright guys, so I'm gonna cut in here for a second and just show you where I'm at now. Been doing this for about maybe 2 minutes, maybe. I haven't checked the clock yet, but I'm at 83 for the sword and 94 for the armor. I had to restart the level halfway through because somehow my character got too close down here and destroyed a geo panel, and it messed it all up. So I'm just leaving my character up here now and letting more enemies gather around Valvatores, because like I said, his stats are so high it doesn't even matter anyway, but I just wanted you to see that. Now I'm cutting in again to show you another update. We're at 91 and 100, not too long from now. Overall, this process hasn't been that long, but I just wanted to give you updates as it moves along. Alright guys, so this should be the last one, and he'll be at 100 for both of these, and we can go back and look at the timestamp at the bottom of the video, and I'll tell you how long it took, and then we'll talk about the difference that it gives you in stats. Alright, that should have been the last one. And it was. So now we have 100 for both our weapon mastery and our armor mastery. Now, the last thing you're gonna wanna do, what I recommend, what I didn't mention, I should have thought of this before I did this, but I just pulled out my mech and then just blasted the whole field to go ahead and end this relatively quickly.
Time for me to act.
And just like that, we have fully maximized the weapon mastery that we needed. Okay, so now in terms of the time that it took to do that, now you guys could probably get it down lower than that. I screwed up halfway through it and had to redo some things, but even taking that into consideration, my mistake, the total time that it took to completely master their weapon, his weapon mastery, was 13 minutes and 42 seconds. Like I said, you could probably work that down to like 10 minutes, maybe even quicker, so it doesn't take that long for one character. Now, if I had done this correctly, and let's say I had 10 minutes on him, Valvatores, just rounding, it would take, you know, if I did 9 characters, it would take probably about 9 times that time. So it would take you a couple hours to do that for your whole squad. But that's about how long it took, was the 13 minutes and 42 seconds. Now, remember the number that I told you to remember as far as how this improves your stats, you know, in terms of the big picture, maxing your stats. So I went back through and I took those veneer thrusters off because the only thing I'm worried about is the thing that we're measuring, and that's the sword attack stat. Same as before, but the only difference now is you can see his sword mastery as that 100, and so is his armor mastery at the bottom. That stat for the sword is still the same, 170,413. Now the contribution to that stat has grown from that 502,718 or whatever that number was to now the 843,544. So if you wanted to calculate how much growth you got from the weapon mastery, you would just take that 8,000. Oh, sorry guys, I'm messing up here. Let me go back so you can see the number. Where is my character? All right, there we go. Back on him. So you would take the 843,544 and you would divide that by the 17413 and you would get 4.9499, and you would just round that up to the 4.95, because remember his attack compatibility aptitude there was 295, so now it's at 495. We got an additional 200% added to his aptitude that's just invisible. You don't see it, but it is there. And that is the benefit of maxing your weapon mastery. Also, in lieu to that, so we only talked about the weapon mastery just now. So now I want to show you how this benefits the armor mastery, which is slightly different than the weapon calculation, but it works very similar. So just like we got an added bonus with the sword weapon mastery, we also get a added bonus for the armor, and I took his sword off to kind of show you, how this works. The difference is with the armor, when you equip, when we're thinking forward to the next step and we're about to start perfecting our traps for our armor slots, if I was to place this trapeze hedron on one of his armor slots, you can kind of see just from this screen right here alone that the armor adds additional stats to all of his character stats, not just, that main stat we were looking at. And technically the sword did too, but it had a higher attack because it's a weapon. But the way it's calculated is slightly different than the way that it's calculated for the weapon, I believe. So what's happening here in the bonus, you can kind of see what's going on, is if you take, say, we'll consider the blue stats on the right kind of like the added stat, or the equipped stat. That's the stat you get when you equip it. And over to the left in the middle, sort of, you can see the normal stats, the base stats of the item before they're equipped, right? So you kind of got like a before and after going on right there. And then just below those two, you still see the equipment capability multiplier that's there. So let's just focus on, let's say, the hit stat, for example, right? You see it says 870,611. So if you took the number on the right, the equipped stat, the 4,949,136, if you divided that by the base stat, 870,000, you would get a number of 5.6846, rounded to 4 decimal places. If you took, after that, the original attack aptitude of 2.95, which is 295 down below, and you, I'm sorry, 285, I'm looking at the wrong stat here. If you took the hit aptitude of 2.85 and subtracted it from that 5.6846, you'd come up with a number that's very close to the original equipment aptitude of 2.83, 2.84 if you rounded it maybe. And then when you divide that by the original 2.85, you get 0.995. So essentially, I say all that to say this. So basically what's happening when you work that out mathematically is you're basically getting 2 times your aptitudes, right? So, and you could go through and do that for each stat, and you'd find numbers very similar. They'd be slightly off because of the innocence that I've added here, but they would all be around very close, like 0.96, 1.02. They'd all be very close to doubling that aptitude stat that you see below. So that's how it would work with your armor. That's probably not an exact number, the exact number that the developers used when they did this, but if you do that for each of those, you will see the pattern that I'm talking about when it comes to how those numbers are being calculated on the right in the blue. It's basically just double your equipment aptitude times whatever, the base stat is before it's equipped for each stat. For today's video, guys, that's it. That's all I have for you. So in summary, what we did was we looked at where you find the weapon mastery. I kind of explained how it works. I went over the benefit of it. I showed you my setup for abilities and equipment, and then I took you to the map that you're supposed to do this on to make it easy and demonstrated it. And then finally, we went over the final numbers so you could see it for yourself. Hopefully this benefited somebody. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something. If you liked it and found it beneficial, please share it with other people. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And once again, thanks for watching. Winks out.